Fellowship family, to this episode of the Deeper Podcast. So excited for you to join us today. This is Jeremy Wynne, the former host of the Deeper Podcast, back for a guest appearance. Excited to be here today with Doug and Brian.
Just like old times.
Just like old times.
Feels so, and he's got his,
I had to. If you're watching the video of it, you'll see we got the tea
But
bag.
I don't remember the Joe iPad and
that's new. That is new.
Marker pencil thingy.
Is that an AE edition? Is that like a, man, I need to have something that I can carry across the globe as I go to all these different places?
I need to have something to be able to keep all my notes digitally so I can keep it kind of synced as I'm in meetings and stuff. So yes, it is a new edition.
Dude, some things change, but some things stay the same. That's really great. Jeremy, welcome back, man.
Hey, thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we're so glad. Okay, so update the people who are listening and we're like, yeah, I recognize that guy. What happened to him? Right. What you been doing?
So I'm the director of business scaling at Advisors Excel here in Topeka. So I get to oversee a team of coaches that works with financial advisors around the country.
Great.
Yeah.
Man, I bet everybody listening for the Deeper Podcast is like, man, I totally understand what he does on a day-by-day basis. I could totally draw that out. So favorite parts of the new job? Like if you're in layman's terms, pretend like we're all idiots. And compared to you, we are.
Well, no, not true at all. I think one of my favorite parts is when I get to help be a part of seeing teams win together. So I get to work with these financial advisory teams that are around the country. And if we start a session and maybe they have a lack of clarity or frustration or just don't have a plan, if I'm able to help facilitate some conversation and be able to get that clarity, alignment, and then I know that in this industry, ultimately, like I'm helping impact that team, and their families and all that kind of stuff for the better, but also all the different clients that they're going to be able to work with too. And so I find too, within my role, I spend pretty extensive periods of time with my clients. So I'll be a day and a half or 2 days doing a session with them, right? And then we got calls and stuff. So you build a relationship and you build trust. Yeah. And so I also really like those moments when you're able to, as we talk about, just be available, where they'll just ask you a question like, hey, tell me more about your family, like life, your story, and able to walk into those moments. So
that's great.
Whether it's in ministry, you're working with people. In my job, I get to work with people too.
Yeah. So how many years were you at Fellowship? How many years did you work here total?
I believe 12.
12. Okay. Yes. So what are the main lessons and or experiences from Fellowship that you are sometimes like on the job now, you're like, wow, that feels very similar, or Fellowship super prepared me to handle X, Y, and Z?
So in general, I would say communication.
You did a lot of that.
Corporately, like in larger group settings, but also in smaller or even one-on-one. Okay. So, at AE, there's a lot of times like, I'm on podcasts or I'm speaking at places or whatever. And so being comfortable with communicating is nice, because I still, like when you preach at Fellowship on the weekend, that's still more than I've spoken to at AE. So,
gotcha.
And then on the personal side too, like I shared, although I'm brought in to help with business scaling and strategy, it all comes back to people stuff too, right? Yeah. And so, and a lot of the advisor groups I work with are family. And so then you have family complexity as well. And so there's just times where I'm like, wow, this feels like ministry right now, and navigating not just the pragmatic pieces, but just the very human elements of it. And so, Fellowship's prepared me well for that as well.
Dude, that's awesome. That's great. It is so good to see your face again. This feels right, except for the seats feel weird. I don't know that I'd sat in the seat much, but everything else feels right about this scenario. So we're going to launch into our quick question of the day. QQOTD. And because we have a former Fellowship employee and somebody who's worked here for 39 years.
Exactly. Moses crossed the
Red Sea. But curious now that you had some other job experiences to compare it to anyway, but being outside of Fellowship for a while now, I want to ask both of you, what's your favorite part about working at Fellowship? So it could be like work culture related or people, whatever it is. What's the best part about working here? And this will just be like a happy-go-lucky Fellowship is awesome kind of moment for us. Brian, you want to start since Jeremy's already carried the load so far?
Sure.
I never know if my parents are going to watch this or not. So
What a great start.
I will tell you, one of the times I was back in Texas, and my mother asked, as she has a couple of times over the years, like, when are you ever coming back to Texas?
Mm-hmm.
And what started flashing in my heads were the faces of the people that we get to serve, and not being able to imagine some of the people, especially some of our prime time age group.
Yeah.
I can't imagine telling them like I was leaving. I just have loved getting to serve them, serve with them, learn from them.
Yeah.
And so it's the people. Similarly, when I first started here and was getting to see the church at work, people I had other churches come and they wanted the mountain curriculum, as if the mountain curriculum was something that was going to be the driving force of success. And I was like, gosh, I will give you all of it. You have no idea that it's not it's not the curriculum that is special. It's the people who are implementing that's special, and I'm not giving you any of them.
You can't have them.
And so from my first year all the way to now, coming up 19 completed years, like I love the people we get to serve with.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's like not even like staff necessarily. It's more just like the people, the volunteers and the people in the congregation.
The staff obviously are people and are part of that.
So they get folded into that.
But
but you're kind of thinking
it's
the volunteers
group of people that
and
we're in day out
Yeah.
with, and I spend a lot of time with the staff during the week, and then with people on the weekend. Just people.
Nice. Great. Thank you. Jeremy, can't steal that answer. It has to be different.
It's going to be similar.
Okay.
I'm going to do what I want to do, dog.
You can't control me. I don't work here.
What are you going to do, fire me?
No, I mean, just fellowship feels like family and feels like home. So part of my story, for those that don't know, my dad was one of the founding elders. So even like my childhood was coming to fellowship. We lived down the street. So there were times I would run or even bike to come to church. Now there's seasons of life when my parents went through cancer and car accidents, the church and fellowship and the people that are here were there for us. And then for my work career, for 12 years, fellowship was that place of stability and home. And so even when I come back to worship, that's just how I feel. I just love coming back home and just being in a place that just feels safe and loving and joy filled for me.
Love it.
Yeah.
Great answers, guys. Okay. We are going to segue hard.
And you're not going to answer.
Right. That's good. I
because
get to be
you
in
would
charge.
say the money. That's what
The
you
money.
usually do.
The money. Yeah, people don't know that story. But we are going to segue into week 18 of The Greatest Story. Jeremy.
Week 18, that sounds so much.
Doesn't it sound
I'm
insane?
so impressed that you actually remember from week to week what number we're on.
Yeah, well, thankfully I have to update the document. So
And when you
that
say
helps.
week
that's true.
18,
That helps, yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you subtract the
Nope.
4 weeks?
We
or
include
continued
the
it?
4 weeks we
Okay.
just talked about. Is
Okay.
actually because there's been some confusion. So
Yeah, got it.
we count those as,
Because we
as
still
weeks.
did it in the daily devotional.
Right.
And it was
Yeah.
still part of the podcast, which
Yeah.
I'm taking you don't listen to.
Wow, why would you do that right now? Poor guy. He's got enough. He's learning a whole new job in the world.
That's right.
Week 18, and we're moving to Saul. So last week we covered like kind of Samuel and Eli as we started First Samuel, and then we get into the story of the first king. And I'm going to ask you, Jeremy, I put this in the show notes. I don't know if you saw it and thought about it, but Brian and I and Joe obviously have been but the behind the scenes of what are we trying to do for our congregation with this series?
Yeah.
What are we trying to teach them and train them to be able to know and then put into conversation? So as somebody who's kind of just receiving this now, how has this series helped you? How has it challenged you? What have you seen from kind of your perspective of what this has done to in your community group too?
Yeah, for sure. So for our family, one of the things that I've just absolutely loved is just how the children are doing the same thing as us.
Yeah, nice.
And so, every time we get in the car, we instantly, hey, what story did you guys hear
Nice.
about? And Judah and Lydia are both able to say, hey, it was Samson, or it was
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
that story was.
Yeah.
And then we're able just to talk about it. And it's just interesting what they sometimes latch onto. And then we kind of talk about that a little bit. But it just gives very natural conversation for us to have as a family around
Great.
God's word and scripture. So that's been super easy, super sweet. Even the different activities and stuff, like they had a crown last week and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just made it easy as parents to be able to partner with the church and work with our kids. So
Perfect.
love
That's
that.
great to hear.
And then our community group, we have had the not the easiest, because there's been some hard discussions and questions that come out of this, but it's been the easiest to jump into discussion.
Nice.
I think story is just easy to remember, easy to capture, and then it just resonates with your own story as well. And so it just felt more intuitive for them to remember the story and then be able to have highlights of like, hey, here's how I saw God, or here's where I'm wrestling with this at a personal level. So it's just been easy to get into conversation. Now, where those conversations have gone, have brought up, there's been some challenging
stuff.
things, but that's the whole point of a community group, right? Is for us to be able to get in and have authentic conversations about God and then what's going on in our own lives. And this series has definitely done that for our group.
That's great. So. And as we have people reading the Bible for the first time, maybe the way through, you're getting questions.
We have some people in our group that this is the first time that they're reading the Bible in its totality, and specifically some of these Old Testament passages.
Yeah, that can be tough.
It's been at times it's like this is really tough. I'm trying to wrestle with this, and sometimes it's been aha moments of, oh, now I understand better why some of the stuff I've read in the New Testament has come to play. So
it's
been
best.
Fun.
I love being a part of those moments when the light bulb goes on for somebody else about how Scripture ties together. Yeah, it's so great. Okay, so good. In the overall scope, we hit a turning point this week, right? We moved from God kind of being in charge of Israel, even though we went through Judges where he raised up the judges, to now monarchy, to now Israel is crying out for a king. So we turned the page into what is a super messy and depressing section of the Old Testament and Israelite history in general, but this is kind of how we start. And so we get to Saul's story, and I think, Brian, do you want to, I'm just kind of like load this on you. Do you kind of want to sum up what we're focusing on this week when it comes to the story of Saul, what he's a picture of, kind of in our, as we look at the characters that we've seen so far, what does Saul kind of bring to the forefront?
Yeah, so where Joe's going to pick up in the story is where they're asking for a king, and God provides a king, and he provides the king that looks like what humanity thinks a king should look like.
Yeah.
Handsome, tall, strapping, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
thank you for using the word strapping.
Whatever. But he is a man that's full of insecurity. He's full of fear, anxiety. Got some people pleasing in there.
Yeah.
Got some trying to hang on to my kingdom once he's made some mistakes, and he keeps throwing bad decision after bad decision. And so where Joe's really going to come alongside, I think, is that he's got a lot of fear. And fear is something we all deal with. It's very natural for us to have fear, but it's what we do with that fear that really kind of highlights the character that's within. And where he had opportunities to, in his fear, to trust in God and to have faith be something that he was led by, he really would give in to fear and just keep leaning into himself, and then kept making worse and worse decisions that kind of led to more and more fear.
Yeah. Great. Man, you did a great job summing that up, being put on the spot. Thank you. I'm not surprised. You're great at your job. So let me just review. So the points, again, if you've heard it, I don't think he's changing them. We just did run through. It was long today, and I think he's going to cut some, but it was all, I remember we were at the end, we were like, wow, that was all good.
It felt fast.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking he's going to stick with these. So I'm going to repeat them so that if you're listening, you are reminded of them. So Saul showed first a fear of inadequacy, the fear that I am not enough. And then Joe's takeaway from that was that fear can distort your God-given identity. So that's the first one. The second one is that Saul had a fear of losing control, and that shows itself in the phrase, I have to fix this. Fear tries to control, but faith waits and obeys. And the third one is a fear of rejection when it came to David. I'm being replaced. Fear can compete, but faith celebrates. And so those are the three kind of, again, deep core fears that we have: fear of inadequacy, fear of losing control, fear of rejection. So get vulnerable before we get kind of talking about other people here. For you, which of those do you feel like is the strongest fear for you, or you operate out of the most frequently?
as Joe went through it and as I've been reading, I would say the second one, the I have to fix this. So I'd say from my own story, there's two things that is kind of drives this, right? So one, per my personality, that I do want to achieve, solve things, fix things, but also in addition to my wiring, being control. Okay, anything else we need to talk about? That didn't come up in my exit interview. But then the second thing is, I mean, your story plays in this too.
Yeah.
And so there have been just times in my life where I've whether true or just feeling that way, I've had to step up to help fix things, that type of a thing. So I think when situations come where you feel like, okay, is God going to come through and be able to solve this? And if there's any doubt of that, then you either over show up or you under show up. And so for me, I'm going to over show up. And so it's going to be like, no, we're not going to let this fail. Like this, we're going to make sure this gets fixed.
Yeah.
And there potentially could be some positives in that, but I think there's mostly a ton of negatives and a wake that can come from that.
Okay.
And so there's a cost to the people around you of when you try to fix things and over show up that they easily cannot feel heard, valued, understood, run over, that type of a thing. But also when you over show up, you're obviously putting all of it on you to solve and to fix it versus trusting God to be the one that's going to fix it. And so as I process through what does this mean for me, I have to do a much better job of when these times come that when you feel anxiety or you feel like I'm out of control, like I need to fix this. How do I slow down and how am I really intentional to listen? Listen to what is my fear in this moment? What is it that I'm trying to fix and why? What am I afraid of within this? Like if this, in my brain, if this doesn't get fixed, what is the fear and anxiety that's driving me to over show up and do more? Okay. So I've got to slow down and listen. As I listen to what God is telling me, hey, here's the root issue, then I need to trust that God is going to handle that root issue. Now, I still need to show up, which is the last part of being obedient, but ultimately God's in control of the outcome and the results. It's not me that's going to shape and like ultimately get the result.
Yeah.
So listen, trust, and then obey. And this is where we see Saul struggling with his obedience. And one of the things that I've been processing as I heard Joe and even just leading up to this is the fact that obedience, it's not overly complicated. If we listen to God and trust him, then we're going to know here's what I'm called to do. But there's usually a cost involved in that. And that cost, it can be like, okay, me not showing up in this moment, like that's going to cause me to potentially maybe lose something here. And like, am I okay with that? Or maybe the cost in me being obedient with something is, okay, I got to have a hard conversation, a conversation that I'd rather not have. Or there's just all kinds of ramifications that can come from being obedient. And instead of doing what I think needs to be done and trying to force it, submitting to God, I'm letting go of the outcome and the result and trusting him with it. So as I've been processing this, that's definitely the one that was like, yeah, I need to hear that today.
That's great. You clearly, though, I mean, have identified it. It's been a part of your life for a long time. You've grown in it. You've learned how to deal with it. So like, you're coming to us with some fully formed processes, which is really great.
Yes, and some of my feedback from so not only have I, you got a life of like working through this kind of stuff, and so when this hits, it's like, oh, that's me. But 2, obviously, I had the passages ahead of time. But 3, my feedback for Joe was like in the message, I was processing a lot of these questions and trying to get to like, what is the root of this? What is the fear, the anxiety, the worry? So I don't want people to hear what I just shared and be like, well, crap, I'm not there yet. Because it is taking me a lot to kind of process to this. So again, slowing down to listen is super important.
I actually loved Joe's disclaimer at the end. Like, this is going to take months at the very least. So I do think people might feel in that moment, oh my goodness, I'm so behind, or I haven't fixed this. And he's like, dude, this is this is going to be a lifelong process most of the time.
The other thing about Jeremy that he's never going to say about himself is that there's an underlying strength there of humility and teachability, where when he would feel like he was out of control, or where he would feel like something wasn't going the right way, like he would come and ask for feedback. He'd ask for help. He would ask how to get better in certain situations. And then you would see him put things in play. And so it's one thing to identify it, but it's another thing to, have the humility to learn and grow from someone outside of yourself.
Yeah.
So you've always done that extremely well.
Thanks, Brian.
Nice. Great encouragement. Good
Sure.
job.
He's making up for the previous jabs, so we're getting there.
Brian is somebody who I don't picture having a lot of fear just because of how stable you are. Did
Yeah.
any of these pop for you?
Yes, it's just going to take me a quick second to get to how.
Yeah.
So I would say the last one, what's
Okay.
the word again?
Fear of rejection.
Rejection.
I'm being replaced. Yeah.
So usually when people say they have a fear of rejection, like with that usually goes like people pleasing. They want people to be pleased. And I don't think most people meet me and go, oh, he's a people pleaser.
As an 8. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
One of the things though, Greg Pruitt once said to Joe, you're someone who likes to get things done. And he said to me, you're someone who likes to do things right.
Okay.
And it's very true. I like to do what is right, believe what is right, act in the way that is right. And so when someone rejects me, it makes me go, did I do something wrong?
Okay.
Am I off? And if someone is clearly able to articulate, no, I understand what you're saying. I just disagree. I'm fine. Like I don't need to please them.
Okay.
But if they're like,
and you don't need to prove that you're right in that moment and they're wrong? Okay.
But, well, yeah, internally, yes.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
but if it makes me like question, like, did I make the right decision? Like the amount of times that I will spend going back over decisions. Did we do what was right? Did we ask all the right questions? Did we, because someone didn't like a response or didn't like an outcome or didn't like that. That's where my fear of rejection is, that I didn't do something right.
Okay. Love it. Thanks for that honesty. I'm going to take that answer and take the other side of it, which is the people approval side is much more my Achilles heel. And I do feel like I could look at all these and say, I have definitely been at a different fear, like been ruled by one of these fears at different times in my life. But the one that's been the most consistent is the rejection. And it's been kind of tied, and when I was listening, it's been kind of tied to the first one. Like, I am a little bit afraid that I'm not going to do well enough at what I've been given to be esteemed or respected. And so if I'm not doing well in that and somebody else is doing better than that, that I will lose the approval of people and or just the praise, I feel like I'm way too driven by praise. I also look at Saul and think he was way too driven by praise. So as soon as they flipped it on him and said, David's killed his tens of thousands, that reaction is so over the top for Saul, how everything changes after that. So
are you more swayed by a lack of praise or by negative feedback?
Ooh, that's a great question. Probably negative feedback. Direct to negative feedback.
Okay.
Yeah. But I definitely noticed the lack of praise. If there's been praise in the past and then suddenly it's not there anymore, then I'm like,
what changed?
Yeah, I preached on Samson a couple weeks ago. Brian is Brian is a great boss, right? And is, like we just witnessed, he's very encouraging.
Yes.
He can be. Right. So it was Tuesday or something. Generally, I'll hear from Brian like Saturday or Sunday or something whenever he hears it, and something kind and encouraging. But I just heard nothing that week.
The sooner the better your sermon was. So the longer wait.
We also didn't talk.
So anyway, no, you don't have to defend yourself. I'm talking about my own insecurity. So on Monday or Tuesday, I was like, okay, my sermon must have been terrible. Like Brian clearly hated my sermon. In my head, I'm like, maybe not the sermon was terrible, because I had other feedback, but it was Brian hates my sermon, right? Because he hadn't gotten. So, and it's just like, I don't need to, like, why would I be ruled by that thought? I don't need to be ruled by that thought.
Now you're touching on my, did I do it right?
Let's just have our insecurities play on each other right now. But I do think that's probably one of my ruling fears. But I do think that people will hear this and be like, oh man, I have that too and that too. And I think we all have these like deep seated fears that are kind of built into us. Okay. Yeah.
Where I chuckle when I hear these three, honestly, is the first one. And I know that is like the question in culture right now.
Yeah.
And my answer is like, of course you're not enough.
Yeah.
There's literally nothing in life that you are enough. You couldn't save yourself. You have to go to school to be taught.
Yep.
You have to be trained when you get to a new job. Like you are literally never enough for anything.
Yeah.
So why would I ever believe, oh, I'm enough. But that is the question. And so I don't want to mock it as much as I just did. But I just, for some reason, that one always kind of came naturally to me that I wasn't. The others, a little bit more work.
I think probably has to do with you accepting the gospel at an early age, because you have to, in order to accept the gospel, start with the position of I'm not enough and I can't do it on my own. So if that's built into you, I feel like gospel fluency in our lives continually comes back to that beginning phrase. I'm not enough. I'm never going to be enough. And I do also feel like that's the reason why it's the strongest lie out of these that we hear in the culture all the time is you are enough. You are enough, because it's going to be the anti-gospel answer.
Doug,
so what'd you say?
That was a really good point.
I'm not falling for it. So, okay. We've all been in leadership and led other people. We've been led and led others. So the question I look at when I come to Saul is, in leadership, how does fear and insecurity wreck us? How does it wreck the teams that we lead? How does it wreck the organizations that we see or churches that people are leading? So how have you experienced insecure leadership, and how has that shown itself practically? And I can go first if you guys are thinking a little bit about it. But the first thing that I notice and that kills me about insecure leadership as somebody who loves to be a part of a team is insecure leadership always turns in and makes everything about the person who's insecure. Decisions that get made for the good of the team become read through the grid of somebody made this decision because of me, or because I'm doing something wrong, or bringing in help or bringing in people, bringing in outside sources to build up something that the team wants to do is seen as I'm not enough. They're going to replace me, other comparisons that we have. And so insecurity just seems to make every decision about this person instead of what's good for the team. And as a coach and somebody who loves team sports, that kills me. I hate to see that. What about you guys?
I'm going to try to use a positive example.
Oh, great.
To talk about what could be negative, I think.
Okay.
So, as your policy handbook gets larger over time.
And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Brian is kind of he is consistently changing our policy handbook. So this is his head all the time.
So, as you start figuring things out, you add things, hopefully you're usually making things better.
Yeah.
And so we had a situation where we had a policy that was kind of new. One of our employees, Bill, utilized it, but then we realized it wasn't enough. We needed to add more to it, and we needed to puff it up a little bit more. And so we did. So I went into Bill's office and said, "Hey, you just experienced this, and now it's going to be this, and you're not going to see the fruit of that." And an insecure leader would be like, "You were out to get me. You did this for this." And his response was, "No, I'm really glad that the people who are going to come after are going to get to experience that."
Nice.
And so when it's an insecure leader, the question is always, like you said, about me. How does this affect me? Why am I losing? As opposed to, oh no, that these other people are gaining, or I helped make that better. And so it's out there. It can be done, but so often, especially if you Google church stories or whatever, most of them are going to come back with people who made decisions to benefit themselves at the expense of the people they were called to serve.
Yeah, well said. What about you, Jer?
Yeah, insecurity, it ultimately just limits everything. It
I
limits
like that.
you, it limits your team, it limits your organization, it limits your impact. And when you're insecure, often you do make it about yourself, but you're afraid of change. So when change happens and change is inevitable, you can view it one of two ways. You can view it as loss. When we change something, I'm going to lose something. I might lose control. I might lose some perks. I might lose a part of my job that I'm really, really good at and competent at. When things change, you can view it as I'm going to lose something. Or you can view it as, man, there's an opportunity for growth here. Or in the midst of this, what is this going to propel us to in this next season? I mean, I've seen that at Fellowship. I mean, Joe has changed how he's led 3 or 4 different times.
Yeah.
And in that, like what his day to day, what his week to week, like what he does, it's had to shift. And so things that he really got joy, energy, positive feedback from and stuff, he had to let go and hand off to other people. And so if we can shift from making it about us to about other people and impact, I mean, it's huge. And like a very practical example is, as a leader, if you're good at making the sale, giving the sermon, giving the talk, whatever, and you get a lot of like dopamine from like those things, you got to come to a place where if you're going to continue to grow and scale, you got to shift to, you get that same amount of joy, excitement when your team does that.
Yeah.
And so are you okay having other people have success, get the praise just as much as if it was you, or actually even more so?
Yeah.
And those shifts are hard as a leader.
Yep.
And so you just have to be okay that this isn't about you. And then going spiritually, I mean, even more, it's not about them, but even like, it's not about you, it's about them, but ultimately it's about God and advancing his kingdom. And so you just become less and less of the equation. And that's hard. Yeah. That's a battle you got to fight every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. The John 3:30, the I must decrease, he must increase. Just sits there. That's a good word, Jeremy. Love that. Thank you. If we're going to take the lessons and make them super applicable for our strategic vision, intentional, at home, available in the world, are there any examples that come top of mind for how we could put this into practice, or just examples for the people who are listening for them to put into practice if they're in a different stage of life than us?
I mean, it's a universal story in the sense of there's insecurity and fear in all of us. And so we're going to come across that when we're dealing with our kids, and being able to spot that. And what does it look like to make a faith-based decision or a trusting decision or a humble decision? Yeah. But we're also going to get that in the world. I mean, how many times do you get together with a friend for lunch or for coffee and they start talking about the crud they're going through at work? I mean, almost every time I get together with someone outside of here, it comes back to what's going on with a neighbor or what's going on with and helping them identify what part of their feelings or story that they're kind of making up. Okay. How much of it that they are truly understanding, what it looks like to put you put yourself in someone else's shoes, and what does it look like to not give in to the insecurities or the anxiety or the rejection.
So like helping the person across the table sift through what they're feeling to get down to what's the fear at the root of this. Yeah. And then maybe what's the truth that they're not believing or whatever.
Let me piggyback off of that a little bit. So I'd say one of the things that I've learned as I've moved from my role in fellowship to corporate job. I have grown in a lot of empathy for the people at fellowship because I'm one of them now. I think before it could be like, we've mapped out a great plan for them. We've given them clear next steps. I don't understand why they don't do it. And then on the other side, I'm like, oh, I understand. I get it. I get it. And so for me, one of the things that I have, as I was going through this, one of the things that I need to believe is that God is the abundant provider of purpose and capacity. So when I was in ministry, like everything we do is purpose, advancing the kingdom of God. Yeah. And then in my job now, I have to be much more intentional and available of living out that purpose, and just continue to ask, like, okay, in the way I'm living my life, where am I living on purpose in alignment with my callings, and where am I out? And so whereas before it was just like in my rhythm, now I have to be like, okay, am I actually doing that? And then the capacity issue, I'm just in a season where both at home takes a lot of energy and work takes a lot of energy. And so then you can go to like having guilt of like, well, I'm not doing these things in the church anymore, and it's like, oh, that's why people didn't say yes to everything. So 100%. Going back to what you were saying, Brian, is I think also when I was at fellowship, there's a little place of, I don't know what value I add to someone that is, out in the world and in business or a teacher, like whatever. Like, I don't know what I really can add value to them, but I just say that having this partnership with the church and being equipped by the church, and you guys when you're sitting across lunch from somebody, like helping us sift through, okay, yeah, what is alignment with what God's saying, and where am I not trusting? Where am I leaning into those fears? Yeah. So I think how the church is thinking about partnering with people is huge. And then I also think, like I said, I just have empathy for people. And so, where I'm at is just trying to be in that space of abundance of trusting God with me being in alignment with my purpose, as well as just capacity in this season.
Yeah. Love it. I think about the easier way for me to think about it as at home with kids. I feel like fears, as adults, we've learned to cope or maybe hide a lot of our fears when they rise up. But for our kids, it's very raw and in the moment. So like fear of rejection comes with tears, and like this person did this to me, or this friend isn't having me over, or we've stopped talking. And the fear of not enough is like I studied and I didn't get a good grade. I didn't make the team. And so it's like it's very visceral and right in front of you. And so it's easier to speak into that on this side of not being a kid anymore and having experienced those hurts. But the reminder of each of those is, how do I turn this conversation that might be emotionally driven and through tears slowly back to the kind of the bedrock that is the Lord, like something that's not going to shift over their time frame, that is a solid foundation. And how do I say, okay, like you might not have gotten a good grade, but were you faithful in what you did? Like, did you do what you were supposed to do? Great. Then we can turn it over to the Lord, and wherever he wants to guide your life, he will, whether you're, and in all of these areas, how do I remove themselves from the hotbed of emotion and take them back to scripture and take them back to a conversation where I say, man, I've also been there and I've learned this, and this is what my faith in the Lord has taught me throughout time. But it feels easier to do when I'm thinking about it in the home. And I'm grateful for your answer about the world, because I was struggling to think of the easy ways to do that. And so you both took the hard question. So I appreciate that. Any thoughts on home before we move on?
No, it's what you said is very real. Like, there's going to be failed tests, and there's going to be not making the team, and there's going to be getting dumped by a girlfriend, and it fundamentally comes down to what God says about you is true, and he's in control even when it doesn't feel like that, and he never rejects you.
Yep. And I think we can tell pretty easily with our kids which ones of these they run to. Like, I have a kid who would be the I have to fix this kid, and I have a kid who would be the I have a severe fear of rejection kid. And so I already know like what kind of bent I'm going to need to take with them as they go through things in life. But it's a lot more easy to see in other people, I feel like, than
always
sometimes in yourself. All right, well, let's go to the cutting room floor. Get it up, Jared. There you go. Okay. All the stuff that's really great that we didn't have time to talk about in the sermon. This story is full of some good stuff, hard stuff, but weird stuff. So what did you guys want to talk about that we didn't get to in the sermon?
I mean, Joe's going to cover both of the
like kind of military war story stuff.
Well, yeah, the two examples with Saul not being faithful when he was supposed to wait for Samuel.
Yep.
The story where he goes and has to destroy the Amalekites is a crazy story. There was a short run TV series on ABC. It came out like.
Where this is going? Is it called The Amalekites?
No, it was 10 or 12 years ago. I think it was called Prophets and Kings and Priests, something along that lines. They ran 2 episodes and it was gone.
Oh gosh.
That good, huh?
But
glad you watched it.
I actually thought it was really good, but they made a couple of very weird decisions. Okay. But this scene with the Amalekites, it was particularly like I've never.
So that's where they start.
Now
we understand why I didn't make it past.
Yeah, right.
He gets the command, and the Amalekites are portrayed as a caravan that's going from one location to the other, and they come across them almost like they're the raiders, they're the bandits, and they come, and then there's one scene where there is a traveling carriage, and they throw open the curtains, and there's a child, and the only thing you see is Saul reaching his sword back, right, and then it goes to black, and it's this picture that Saul was obedient.
Yeah.
because then the next scene is when Samuel comes and he sees the king and he sees the thing. And so I don't know. Like, I don't know how much we're going to go into that, but.
Well, we're going into it now because you brought it up.
Yeah. No, I mean on the weekend.
Yeah. Not. I would guess not at all.
But
yeah.
What
do you do with that when people have asked you in the past? I'm sure you've gotten it a bunch of times. What do I do with these passages where God says to kill all the women and children? How do you respond, Jeremy?
Well, you know what verse I'm going to start with.
Okay, classic.
Yeah.
Deuteronomy 28,
His
36.
ways are higher than my ways.
Hey, see, look at this. Look at this.
Just like I never left.
Isaiah 55, 8 and 9, his ways are higher than our ways and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And so God had a purpose. And if you read Joshua, Judges, Deuteronomy carefully, like he constantly talks about like purifying the land and doing things to prepare a place for his people to be able to go so they can remain wholly devoted to him. And so
how did you choose that one? I was going to guess if he mentioned Deuteronomy earlier in run through, but then also I feel like when it comes to these hard questions of God's sovereignty, he always just goes to Romans, like the tough passages in Romans where like some vessels were created for destruction. How do you feel about that?
Ignoble purposes.
Yeah, I feel like he loves it. How did you?
I'm a Brian disciple, I guess. Just know we're in sync.
Bryce disciple. Here we go.
Right. Like ultimately, I have to believe his plan and his purpose was holy and was good, even if it doesn't appear that way in worldly standards. Okay. And so the problem is with me, which I know you think it means I punt, but
I was about to say use the word punt in that next sentence that I was going to say. But yeah, that's great. Good punt.
What about you, Doug?
You switch field position. That was great. Put it back on them. So that's great.
What about you, Doug?
Yeah, I was telling these guys earlier that I went through a study with my dad and some other young adults a couple summers ago where we just spent the whole summer talking about this problem.
Yeah.
And there's some solutions out there that kind of like ease the burden on God to like not make him look so evil. And I would say that my favorite of all of the solutions that we read books on, everybody's, putting that book out to make some money, but was that God uses language that they would have understood. It's very military war language, which is like kill everybody, and we read stories about when they do it right. And it's like they wiped out the entire population. But then like 10 chapters later, it's like the people still exist. So it's basically merism, if you want to use the Hebrew scriptural term, or language of totality, language of war, where God says this, and in reality it's, you are leaving some women and children, and they are repopulating, or you're bringing them into the fold. And so it's like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. And at the same time, I can get to Brian's sovereignty when God says like, you're going to wipe these people out because they sacrifice their children, their acts are detestable before the Lord, and the stink has risen before me and they need to be wiped out. And I'm like, okay, they're really evil people and they needed to be taken care of. So I don't know, there's that mix. What do you do, Jerry? You've had to talk about it.
I don't think I've got any better answers than you guys. I mean, in my community group, we were discussing this because, it's hard to wrestle with this.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing that came up was Job, and just, okay, why did God say, don't harm Job, but then his whole family, like that can happen. Yeah. So that just feels unfair. And in this, I mean, Sean Leary was like, Jeremy, what do you think? I'm like, Sean, I don't know, man.
Get him, Sean.
But, one of the things I said was, and you can look at it as all the things that God did that feels harsh, or you can look at it as, okay, God is a God of pure justice. So actually there's a lot of ways in which he's actually showing grace and mercy. So instead of highlighting, well, here's all the things that seem disproportionate with his character. Maybe actually the areas that he's showing grace and stuff, maybe that's disproportionate with his justice too. But I don't know if that feels great, that answer.
Yeah.
So
you know what it feels like though, is like scriptural truth. Sometimes that doesn't feel great.
The other thing I think we need to keep in mind, when Peyton was young, Betsy would read Grimm's fairy tales.
Yeah.
To
the
her
actual
every night.
Grimm's fairy tales.
Because they didn't know.
Messy.
They didn't know.
Who's
because
they? Betsy and
our family.
Okay.
Because when you read the Disney version, everything's been polished and sanitized at the end. And when you read the actual stories, they're horrific.
They're terrible. Yeah.
And there is something about our current culture that like we are not okay with a dark ending or a bad ending. Where I think civilizations of
in the past,
yesteryear.
Strapping and yesteryear. This guy's 65.
It's just not seen through the same lens.
Yeah.
And so while the Bible is still relevant for us in the 21st century, we cannot read it through a 21st century lens and take our values and put it back on it.
Yeah.
Which is hard to do, but it's just something we need to be reminded of
we
time
need
to time.
we need to think about. Wow, thanks for jumping into the worst and hardest of all of the possible cutting room floor topics. Classic Brian. Jeremy, what do you got? Anything that's in there that you find fascinating?
No.
Okay, great.
I nothing
It's
better
all
than you're going to bring up.
Some things that stood out to me, Joe might mention, and we kind of talked about, but I do feel like the world chooses their leaders based on totally superficial things so much. Like I grew up hearing about how our presidents in the United States are always a little bit taller than average. And then since we've started like broadcasting debates and having face that, it's always basically always the taller, better looking person that has a starting approval rating that's higher. So it's like just in our human nature to be like, we need a leader. Let's get a tall, good looking person. And often I feel like those people, if you have been built up in your life by being told that you're a good looking person, like you are very concerned with your looks, right? You become concerned with what people praise. And so they praise the superficiality of it. And so it's just one more reminder of like, man, we're kind of stupid. Like overall we care. We just tend to care about the wrong things.
We are far too easily pleased.
There you go.
And convinced.
And I love in the story, Samuel comes across as kind of a boss when Saul like goes looking for his donkeys and then runs into Samuel. Like Saul doesn't tell him what he's doing. And then Samuel like says, hey, you need to do this and this and this. And by the way, your donkeys are found. Don't worry about them. And it's like, it's felt like Jesus being to the woman at the well, being like, yeah, I know all that stuff. And the person you're living with is not your husband right now. But the prophetic side of Samuel, when God uses it, just comes across as awesome.
The most boss thing that Samuel does, though, is when he hacks Agag to pieces when Saul wouldn't do it.
Brian's getting gritty on this.
That was going to be episode 3 in your series.
No,
they got cut.
They showed it. That's the end.
No
and
way.
he is hacking him
No
to pieces.
wonder this didn't make it. Did you say it was on ABC?
Yeah, I'll tell you off air the decision they made.
Okay. Anyway.
So, couple of things. One, Saul makes a statement about like, I'm from the least of the tribes of Benjamin.
Yeah.
And normally when I would hear that, I would think about it was the youngest kid. And so like it's almost like least important because it's the youngest. But if you go back and read Judges 20 and 21, which is extremely messed up.
Also not an episode of this that they should make. But
you understand why Benjamin would be regarded as a lower tribe, as a tribe that they didn't really might not like as much.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. The second thing is in Deuteronomy 28:36, there is a thing about when you take a king and put it over you, but it's listed in the curse section. And so doing the whole greatest story element of this, like a picture of Israelite living in the curse is putting a king over it. And so in the midst of them asking for the king, God is kind of saying, hey, let them have it. I know what you're doing. You're rejecting me. Let me show you what a king looks like. And he takes the quintessential picture of humanity that they all look at, who is an absolute train wreck of a human. So that when we get to chapter 16 and Samuel tries to do the same thing of going and looking at the front and God being like,
sons,
no, it's the runt. Because it's not going to be this way with my people. It's just, there's... Saul makes terrible decisions. I'm not trying to excuse anything that Saul's doing, but God is also trying to teach his people something through this process.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Love it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time. Jeremy, will you do us a favor?
Yes.
And will you pray for the congregation and small groups who might be doing this?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much just for this opportunity to discuss your word and your truth. I pray that as we process what was shared here and in the message, and as we've been reading your word, that we reflect on what are these fears, what are these lies that we're believing, how do we get to the root of that? What are you trying to teach us? What are you trying to reveal to us? And I pray that we run to you in the midst of our fears, worries, doubts, insecurities. And ultimately, as we run to you, we're able to help advance the kingdom of God and see those around us see and experience Jesus through us, and then ultimately have them go out to other people. So help us be a people that are focused on you, are focused on your word, and not focused on ourselves. And pray just for the discussions as we go from here, whether it's with our kids as they come out of church, or whether it's with our community group or our spouse or friends, whatever that, coworkers, whatever that looks like. Pray that it just brings about great conversation that ultimately draws us deeper in our love for you and our love for other people. And we pray all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Love it. Jeremy, take us out, dude.
All right.
Still remember how to do it?
I think so. Okay. We'll see. Fellowship family, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Deeper Podcast. We look forward to have you join us next time.